Imagine this. You're always available, always responding, always giving him exactly what he wants the moment he wants it. What happens? He gets comfortable. He knows that no matter what he does, whether he puts in effort or not, you're there. And comfort, ironically, is the enemy of desire, because desire isn't built on what's predictable, it's built on what's uncertain. Silence introduces uncertainty. It creates space, a psychological vacuum that his mind can't help but fill. You might think that saying less means you'll fade from his thoughts, but in reality, it has the opposite effect. The moment you stop reaching out, stop over-explaining, stop trying to prove your value with words, he starts noticing, he starts wondering. And wondering is the first step to obsession. Think about the last time you misplaced your phone. The moment you realized it was gone, it was all you could think about. You weren't paying attention to the things you did have in front of you because your mind was preoccupied with what was missing. The same principle applies in relationships. The moment you remove your presence, even partially, you become something he has to think about. This isn't about playing games or manipulating someone into missing you. It's about understanding human psychology. We place higher value on things that feel scarce. When you make yourself too available, you unknowingly diminish your own worth in his eyes. It's not because you're any less valuable, far from it. But when something is always there, we assume it always will be. We stop working for it. We stop appreciating it. Now, silence doesn't just create absence, it creates contrast. If you've been someone who's always there, always responding, always initiating, then your silence sends a message louder than words ever could. It signals a shift. It makes him take notice. It forces him to ask questions. Why isn't she reaching out? Has she lost interest? Is she moving on? Those questions make you the focus of his thoughts, and that focus is what drives action. But here's where most people go wrong. They panic. The moment he starts to pull away, they overcompensate. They send the long text explaining their feelings. They try to remind him of what they had. They try to force a connection through words instead of allowing space for him to feel their absence. And that's the difference. Words make him hear you. Silence makes him feel you. This is why silence is powerful, because it leaves room for imagination. And imagination is where desire lives. When you go quiet, his mind starts filling in the blanks. He starts remembering moments, replaying memories, thinking about what you might be doing. He starts feeling the shift of power, realizing that he's no longer in control of your attention. And that realization is uncomfortable for him. But discomfort is what creates movement. If he cares, he won't just sit with that discomfort. He'll act on it. He'll reach out. He'll check in, he'll try to figure out what's changed. And if he doesn't, then you have your answer. You don't need to chase, convince, or explain. His silence in response to yours tells you everything you need to know about his level of investment. And that is a gift. The best part? When you stay silent, you also gain clarity. You get to see the relationship for what it truly is, not just what you want it to be. You remove the noise and let the truth reveal itself. Does he care enough to step up? Or was he only invested when your energy was carrying the relationship? And here's the final, most important piece. Silence isn't just about making him notice you. It's about making you notice yourself. Because when you stop focusing on getting his attention, you redirect that energy back to yourself. You start filling your own space instead of waiting for him to do it. You become the person who is too busy living her life to chase after someone who isn't showing up. And that energy, that's what makes you magnetic. That's what makes people drawn to you, not because you're playing a game, but because you're demonstrating something rare: self-respect, confidence, and the willingness to walk away from anything that isn't meeting your needs. So if you're tempted to break the silence, to send the message, to explain yourself, pause. Let the space do the talking. Let him feel the weight of your absence. And most importantly, let yourself feel the power of choosing not to chase. Because the moment you stop trying to be heard is the moment you become unforgettable. Let's talk about something counterintuitive. Why pulling back actually creates a stronger pull toward you. It's not about playing hard to get or manipulating someone into missing you. It's about understanding a fundamental truth of human nature. We crave what feels just out of reach. Think about it. The things we desire most in life, the things we fantasize about, dream about, and work hardest for, are never the things handed to us on a silver platter. They're the things we have to earn. The things that make us wonder, can I really have this? Is it mine? That uncertainty is what makes us chase, what keeps us hooked. And yet, when it comes to relationships, so many people make the mistake of being too accessible, too eager to reassure, too quick to fill every moment with conversation and presence. They believe that being constantly available is the way to secure someone's attention. But in reality, it does the opposite. It makes you blend into the background. Silence is disruptive. It breaks a pattern. If he's used to you always reaching out, always responding instantly, always being there, then your silence is going to feel loud. It's going to shift the dynamic. And that shift is exactly what makes him notice you in a new way. It's like music. Imagine you're listening to a song that has no pauses, no breaks, just constant sound. Eventually, you stop noticing the details because there's no contrast. But when the music suddenly stops, you feel it. The silence grabs your attention because it wasn't expected. It's the same in relationships. When you remove yourself, even just slightly, it forces the other person to become aware of what they might lose. This is the moment where his perception of you starts to change. Suddenly, you're not just a given. You're not predictable. You're not someone he can take for granted. Instead, you become someone he has to think about. And when a man is thinking about you, he's investing in you. Because the things we think about the most are the things we care about the most. But here's the key. Silence only works if you actually mean it. If you're pulling back with the secret hope that he'll immediately notice and come chasing after you, then your silence is performative, and men can sense that. Real, effective silence comes from a place of genuine confidence, of knowing you're worth enough to step back and let someone else show up. It comes from understanding that you don't need to prove anything, that your presence is a gift, not something you need to beg someone to appreciate. Now let's take this deeper. Why does silence make someone miss you? Because it creates space for longing, for curiosity, for appreciation. When you're always there, when you're always the one initiating, there's no room for the other person to feel what life is like without you. And without that contrast, there's no opportunity for them to truly value you. Think about people who travel constantly for work. When they're home, they don't think much about their surroundings. They take it for granted. But the moment they're away for an extended period, they start missing the little things, the comfort of their bed, their morning routine, even the sound of their neighborhood, because distance has a way of amplifying appreciation. The same thing happens in relationships. When you step back, you give him the chance to feel the loss. And that feeling of loss is what makes people realize what they actually had. Now, let's be clear. This isn't about withholding affection as a way to control someone. This isn't about punishing a man or making him suffer. It's about creating the right kind of emotional space so that he has the opportunity to choose you rather than you constantly choosing him. Because here's the reality. When someone chooses you out of their own desire, not out of pressure, guilt, or obligation, that's when real, lasting attraction is built. So if you find yourself tempted to reach out, to check in, to make sure he hasn't forgotten about you, ask yourself, am I doing this because I genuinely want to, or am I doing this because I'm afraid of losing his attention? If it's the latter, take a step back. Let the silence do the work. Let him sit with the discomfort of not having immediate access to you. Let him experience the weight of your absence. Because here's the truth. A man who truly values you will feel that absence. And he won't just feel it, he'll do something about it. So don't be afraid to pull back. Don't be afraid to be quiet. You don't need to beg to be noticed. You don't need to over-explain your worth, your silence, your confidence, your ability to walk away if you're not being appreciated. That speaks louder than words ever could. Let's talk about why scarcity creates value, not just in economics, but in relationships. If you've ever wondered why some people seem to command attention effortlessly while others struggle to be noticed, it all comes down to one thing: perceived value. And perceived value is directly tied to availability. The more something is available, the less we value it. It's why luxury brands limit their supply. It's why people chase limited edition sneakers or exclusive invitations to events. Scarcity creates demand because we assume that if something isn't easily accessible, it must be worth having. Now, apply this to yourself. If you are always available, always reaching out first, always filling the silence with words and validation, you become the emotional equivalent of a convenience store. Open 24/7, easy to reach, predictable. There's no urgency to appreciate you, no reason to wonder about you because you're always right there. And when there's no urgency, no sense of possible loss, people get get complacent. But when you pull back, when you create space, you introduce a psychological shift. Suddenly there's uncertainty. Suddenly there's a question, where is she? Why hasn't she reached out? And that question, that little bit of tension, is exactly what makes someone start thinking about you more. Here's where this gets even deeper. When someone is forced to wonder about you, they start filling in the blanks with their own imagination. And imagination is a powerful thing. It's what keeps us hooked on books, TV shows, and love stories, because our minds get engaged in the unknown. When you go quiet, when you're not immediately available, his mind will start to do the work for you. He'll think about your last interaction. He'll replay moments in his head. He'll start to notice your absence in a way he never did before. And that's because emotional investment doesn't come from being handed something on a silver platter. It comes from the mental and emotional effort we put into it. When someone starts thinking about you, wondering about you, missing you, they are investing in you. And once they start investing, they don't want to lose what they've put that effort into. But here's the mistake many people make. The moment they sense someone pulling away, they panic. They feel the discomfort of space, and instead of allowing it to work in their favor, they rush to fill it. They send the text, they call to check in, they break the silence because they are uncomfortable, not realizing that by doing so, they rob the other person of the chance to miss them. Think about it, like a great conversation. Have you ever spoken to someone who never pauses, who fills every gap with words, never giving you a moment to think or respond? It's overwhelming. It doesn't allow for depth, for curiosity, for connection. But when someone speaks with purpose, when they know the value of a well-placed pause, it makes you lean in. It makes you anticipate what they're going to say next. You need to become that person in your relationships. The one who isn't afraid to pause, to create moments of quiet that allow the other person to lean in, to notice, to miss your presence. This isn't about manipulation. This isn't about playing games. It's about confidence. It's about knowing that your worth doesn't come from how often you remind someone you exist. It comes from the impact you leave when you're not there. And let's be clear, a man who is truly interested, a man who truly values you will feel that impact. If your absence doesn't make him think twice, then your presence never really mattered to him in the first place. And that's important information. So many people spend their energy trying to force someone to see their worth when the real answer is so much simpler. If he doesn't notice when you pull back, he was never really present in the first place. And if he does notice, if he starts to wonder where you've gone, starts to miss the way you made him feel, starts to reach out and invest more, then you've just shifted the power dynamic in a way that benefits you. Because here's the thing, attraction isn't just about presence, it's also about absence. Love isn't just about what someone feels when you're around, it's about what they feel when you're not. So let the space exist, let the silence do its work. If he truly values you, he will fill it. And if he doesn't, then you have your answer. There's a fundamental mistake people make when trying to capture someone's attention. They think effort alone creates desire. That if they just show how much they care, if they just prove their worth through words and actions, the other person will automatically appreciate them. But the truth is, effort alone doesn't create value. Perception does. And perception is shaped by contrast, by what is there and what isn't. Think about it. When do you crave something the most? When you have unlimited access to it, or when it becomes scarce, whether it's time, attention, or even love? The human mind is wired to desire what isn't guaranteed. We chase what we might lose, not what we believe will always be there. Now, let's apply this to relationships. If you're always there, always initiating, always making sure he knows you care, you're removing the very thing that triggers desire. Uncertainty. The reason people become obsessed with something is because it isn't completely predictable. It leaves room for imagination. It makes them question what might happen next. And in that space of uncertainty, desire grows. This is why going quiet is so powerful, because in your silence, you're forcing a shift in perspective. You're disrupting his sense of certainty. You're changing the dynamic from one where he takes your presence for granted to one where he has to wonder about it. At first, this might seem counterintuitive. We've been conditioned to believe that if we like someone, we should make it obvious, that we should express our feelings openly and consistently. And while honesty is important, so is emotional intelligence. So is understanding human psychology. And the truth is, people don't appreciate what they don't have to work for. If you've ever had a conversation with someone who reveals everything about themselves too quickly, you know how this works. There's no mystery, no intrigue, just information being handed to you without any effort. Compare that to someone who gives you glimpses, who lets you in slowly, who makes you earn their trust and attention over time. Who is more interesting? Who do you find yourself thinking about when they're not around? It's the same with attraction. If he never has to wonder where he stands with you, if he never has to question whether he's losing your interest, there's no urgency for him to invest, no reason for him to step up, because why would he? He already knows you'll be there. But when you pull back, when you allow silence to do its work, you create a new experience for him. He starts to notice the absence. He starts to realize that your attention isn't something he can just expect, it's something he has to earn. And that shift in mindset changes everything. Suddenly he's checking his phone more often, wondering why you haven't reached out. He's replaying moments in his head, trying to figure out if something changed. He's feeling something he hasn't felt before, uncertainty. And uncertainty is what makes people act. This isn't about manipulation. This isn't about playing games. It's about knowing your value and refusing to hand it over too easily. It's about creating an environment where he has to step up if he wants to keep you. Because if he does, then he was never truly invested to begin with. And that's the part many people struggle with. They fear that if they pull back, the other person might not chase them. That if they go quiet, he might just let the connection fade. But here's the thing. If silence makes someone disappear, then presence wouldn't have made them stay. What you want is a man who values you because he had to work to keep you, not a man who only sticks around because you make it easy. And the only way to know the difference is to allow space, to allow him the opportunity to feel your absence, to recognize what it means when you're not there. The most powerful thing you can do in any relationship is to give someone the opportunity to miss you, not because you're punishing them, not because you're trying to manipulate an outcome, but because missing someone is what creates value in their mind. It's what makes them realize deep down that they don't want to lose you. So stop filling the silence with unnecessary effort. Stop trying to prove your worth by always being available. Instead, step back. Let him notice your absence. Let him feel the space you once occupied. And if he truly values you, he will close the distance. One of the biggest misconceptions people have in relationships is thinking that presence alone creates impact. That if they just show up enough, if they express their feelings enough, if they make their intentions clear enough, the other person will automatically reciprocate. But that's not how desire works. Desire isn't built on certainty, it's built on contrast. Think about the most valuable things in your life, the ones you hold closest to your heart, the experiences, the people, the opportunities that mean the most to you. They aren't the things you could have at any time, in any quantity, with no effort. They are the things that have at some point felt at risk, the things that required something from you: time, energy, patience, the things that made you feel something real because they weren't just handed to you. Now, apply this to the person you're thinking about right now, the one you want to feel your absence, the one you want to step up to appreciate you in a way they never have before. Ask yourself, what message are you sending through your actions? Have you created any contrast in their experience of you? Or have you made it so easy, so effortless for them to access your time, your energy, your attention, that they've stopped valuing it altogether? Because here's the reality: when you give someone unlimited access to you, you unintentionally lower your perceived value. It's not because you aren't worthy, it's not because you aren't special, it's because you aren't giving them a reason to realize that you are. When you go quiet, when you stop filling the space with your constant presence, your need for reassurance, your efforts to make them see your worth, something interesting happens. They start to feel your absence, and more importantly, they start to question it. This questioning is crucial. It creates an internal dialogue they haven't had before. Instead of assuming you'll always be there, they start to wonder, why haven't you reached out? Has something changed? Are you losing interest? And the moment that uncertainty enters their mind, something shifts. They become aware of the possibility of losing you. Now, let's be clear. This isn't about manipulation. It's not about playing games or trying to control someone's emotions. It's about understanding a fundamental truth about human nature. We don't appreciate what we don't have to work for. If someone has never had to invest in you, if they've never had to question where they stand with you, if they've never had to feel what it's like to not have you readily available, then they have no reason to step up. They have no urgency to match your energy, no reason to prioritize you the way you deserve to be prioritized. But when you go quiet, when you allow them to sit in the absence of you, they have to face something they've never had to face before: the reality of life without your presence. And that's when the obsession begins. Not because you forced it, not because you manipulated it, but because you allowed it. Because you created space for them to realize something they couldn't see before. You aren't a given. You aren't a guarantee. You are a choice. And if they want you, they're going to have to make that choice. Now, here's where most people struggle. Silence is uncomfortable. The moment you go quiet, the doubt creeps in. What if they don't care? What if they never reach out? What if they just let me go? And those thoughts can be terrifying, because deep down, you want to be wanted. You want to be chosen. And in your mind, silence feels like risking that choice. But here's the truth you need to hold on to. Anyone who lets you go when you stop overgiving was never truly invested in you. And that's a gift, not a loss, because the person who is meant for you won't let your absence go unnoticed. The right person will feel it and they will act on it. So the question is, do you have the courage to create that space? Do you have the self-worth to stop over-explaining, over-giving, over-proving? Do you trust that your value isn't in your presence alone, but in your ability to be missed? Because the less you say, the more they will think. The less you give, the more they will crave. The less you chase, the more they will feel the need to come to you. And that's the real power. Not in forcing them to see your worth, but in giving them the opportunity to realize it on their own. One of the hardest things to accept in any relationship is that you cannot control how someone else feels about you. You cannot force desire. You cannot convince someone to see your worth if they aren't already inclined to. And the more you try, the more you rob yourself of the very thing that makes you desirable in the first place: your sense of self, your confidence, your ability to walk away when you aren't being valued. This is why silence is so powerful, not as a tactic, not as a trick to make someone chase you, but as a declaration of your own worth. When you stop speaking, when you step back, when you create space instead of constantly filling it, you allow the truth to surface. And here's what's fascinating. When you go quiet, the other person is left alone with their own thoughts. Without you there, filling in the gaps, reassuring them, keeping the connection alive, they are forced to sit in the space you once occupied. And that space speaks louder than any words ever could. At first, they might not even notice. They may be so accustomed to your presence, so used to the idea that you will always be available, that your absence doesn't immediately register. But over time, something shifts. The pattern they've grown comfortable with is broken. The texts that used to come in like clockwork stop arriving. The calls, the check-ins, the effortless access, they all disappear. And this is where discomfort sets in. They start to wonder, did I do something wrong? Why haven't they reached out? Has something changed? And the most important question of all, the one that turns the entire dynamic on its head, do I still have them? That question is the key, because when someone starts to wonder if they've lost you, they are forced to confront what you actually mean to them. And more importantly, they have to face the fact that losing you is a real possibility. Now, let's be clear. This only works if your silence is rooted in strength, not insecurity. If you go quiet, but internally you're panicking, waiting for them to notice, hoping they'll suddenly wake up and chase you, you haven't actually stepped back. You're still emotionally tethered to them, still seeking their validation, still allowing them to dictate your sense of worth. True power comes when your silence isn't about them at all, when it's about you, about reclaiming your energy, about breaking the habit of over-explaining, over-giving, over-proving, when your silence is a reflection of your self-respect rather than a desperate attempt to get a reaction. That's when everything changes. Because the truth is, people don't obsess over what's easily accessible. They obsess over what feels scarce, over what they once had and might never get back, over what made them feel something real, something they didn't fully appreciate until it was gone. And this is where you have to trust in your own value. If they miss you, they will come back, not because you forced them to, but because they felt your absence, because they realize